Hey guys, so I'm going to do your nutrition video, and so this will be one of the last things that we're going to do in 202. And let me get this started. So when we talk about nutrition, we've learned about digestion, and we've talked about how we eat food and fluids and take those into our digestive system, and how we process those, break them down, absorb them. And so what we want to talk about is what do we need to actually put into our digestive system. And so when we talk about the things that we eat, we're really talking about nutrition. And we want to make sure we're making healthy choices about what we put into our digestive system. And so when we talk about nutrition, we're talking about the ingested nutrients that we can use for metabolic fuel, so ATP, and also the nutrients that we're going to need to make things that we can use to make cell structures like proteins, cell membranes, that we can use to synthesize the stuff that we make our body from. And when we think about nutrients, we also think about how much energy we can get from a certain amount of food. And so when we think about a calorie, a lot of times we're real focused on, instead of thinking how nutritious the food is, we think about how caloric it is. And a lot of people don't even know what a calorie is. And a calorie is really all it means is how much heat does it take to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius. And so that's all a calorie means. It's a chemical term, but we a lot of times use that to replace the word nutrients. We're more worried about our calories than how nutritious the food is. So anyway, I just want you to know what a calorie actually is. It's just a chemical term that chemists use to say how much heat does it take to raise the temperature of a liter of water 1 degree. All right, that's what it means. But that's why it's so hard to lose weight. Think about having to generate enough heat in your body to be able to raise a liter of water by 1 degree. It takes a lot of energy. That's why it's so hard to burn calories to lose weight. So when we talk about nutrition, what is a nutrient? A nutrient is the substance in food that we can use for metabolic repair and growth, fuel, maintenance. So anything that we can ingest and then we can actually use that in some way. All right, and they're divided into macronutrients, and this is most of what we eat. And those are primarily going to be carbohydrates, your sugars, your lipids or fats, and your proteins. Okay, and you also have some micronutrients, and these are things that you get in small amounts, like your vitamins and minerals. And water is also technically a nutrient. You must have water. We don't make enough metabolic water to serve our purposes, so we have to have water as part of our daily recommended allowances. Now when we think about nutrition, we have things that are called essential nutrients and non-essential nutrients. And essential nutrients are nutrients that you have to eat because your body can't make them. Okay, so nutrients that you must eat because your body can't synthesize them. Okay, because our bodies make a lot of stuff, but some things we can't produce. And so there's a bunch of those. There's about 45 to 50 of these essential nutrients, and I'm not going to make you memorize which ones, but they include a lot of fatty acids. Think about omega-3s that you see in fish oil, and then some amino acids. And amino acids are things that we need to make proteins, and we'll talk about some importance, why that's important if you're a vegetarian. Non-essential nutrients are those that we have to have, but if we don't eat it, our liver can actually convert something into it. So we can convert one nutrient into another. So we do need these to live, but our own body is able to produce them. Now this is the old food pyramid. So the government, trying to give us guidelines on what's healthy to eat, came up with a food pyramid, and this has been around forever. And so I throw it in here because a lot of people are really familiar with it, and a lot of people still use this as their guideline. And it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with the food pyramid. It just shows you that you need to balance out how much whole grains you eat. You balance that out with vegetables and fruits and nuts and legumes and meat, dairy, and then fats and sweets and unprocessed carbohydrates. And it's really a balancing act. But it's hard when people look at that. They go, oh, I get to have a lot of oil, I get to have more oil than I have fruits and vegetables. So people weren't really using the food pyramid like they wanted, like it was meant to be. And so the new guideline is called My Plate. And what that is supposed, it's meant to be easier for you. And all you do is you take a plate and your fist, and you put your fist on your plate, and you get a fist size portion of protein or meat. You get a little bit larger than a fist size portion of vegetables, a fist size portion of fruits, a fist size portion of grains, and your dairy. Okay, and so it's a little bit easier. So you just take your plate, divide it into fourths, and fill it up with vegetables, fruits, grains, and proteins. Now again, you still have to think about calories, but if you can have a balanced diet, that means you're getting about equal amounts of all of these things. Okay, so that's kind of the new way of thinking of it versus the food pyramid. So where do we get carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are primarily for plants. Okay, so plants make sugars. Think about sucrose and fructose and all the different sugars that can be made by your plants. And these are called your starches, and then your sugars, and then your starches are complex carbohydrates. So these are going to be large chains, very complex, and they're generally going to be the things that you see in your grains and your vegetables. Whereas your sugars, your pure sugars like glucose, your mono and disaccharides are going to be found in your fruits and sugarcane, which is where we get table sugar from, beets, honey, and milk. So these complex carbohydrates, those are those long chain sugars that we talked about when we talked about chemistry in 201, whereas just regular sugars are just one sugar molecule, or disaccharides where you have two sugar molecules. So these are going to be, again, starches, your grains, rice, potatoes, things like that. You also have sugar in milk, like lactose, and there's also some glycogen in meat. Remember, glycogen is a long chain of glucose that we use as a way to store glucose. So we store it as glycogen, so meat has some glycogen in it. What we want to do is we want to break down all of these different forms of sugar into the component piece, which is glucose, and that's what we use to make ATP. And if we don't need all that glucose, then we will store it. And so we will store it as glycogen, and that's where we're going to store it in case we need to use it later, in case we don't have any food and we need to have some energy. We have lipids, and those are fats, and so your dietary sources are your triglycerides. And your triglycerides are known as your neutral fats, and we see these in animal products like meat, dairy, and also some tropical fruits like coconut oils, palm oils. Those also have triglycerides. So a lot of times people think, oh, I'm eating lots of coconut, that must be healthy for me. Well, not necessarily, because it's got a lot of it's high in triglycerides, which can have some issues when you're thinking about heart health and things like that. So you really have to be careful when you just go out and grab a bunch of triglycerides and tropical fruits and nuts, and realize that you are getting fat. I mean, they are, although they're plant sources, they do have fats, and you can't just gorge yourself on these fats. You also have, so when you're thinking about, again, when you think about these triglycerides, you do have an unsaturated fat, which you see in things like nuts and olive oil and your vegetable oils. So these are going to be healthier than your saturated fats typically. So when you grab a thing of almonds, is better than to grab a thing of palm oil or coconut. You also have cholesterol, which you find in egg yolks and meat. This would be like muscle, like a steak, organ meats. People eat liver, things like that. Shellfish and milk products. But even if you didn't have any cholesterol, your liver actually makes cholesterol. So if you have high cholesterol and you're like, I don't ever eat cholesterol, I've lowered it into my diet, I never eat it, and you still have high cholesterol, it's because your liver is working against you. So your liver will actually make cholesterol. So some people just have naturally high cholesterol because their livers make it. So why do we need lipids? Well, we have to have them. I mean, it's not like we can just ignore them and never eat lipids. We must have them. Think about the phospholipids that we use to make our cell membranes. Phospholipid, we have to have them. So that's what we use to make the myelin sheaths that protect our nervous system, that insulate our neurons. There's some vitamins that we can't absorb because they're fat soluble. So we've got to have the fat to help absorb these vitamins. We have to have lipids to make the adipose tissue, and adipose tissue is crucial for protection and insulation and a place to store fuel. Cholesterol is also important. We tend to give cholesterol a bad name, but it is actually something that we have to have. It's used to help stabilize those cell membranes. We use it for the production of bile salts. So remember the gallbladder, you've got to have this cholesterol to make the bile salts that we need for our gallbladder to work correctly. And it's the precursor for steroid hormones like testosterone and estrogen. All right, so like I said, we try to give cholesterol a bad name, but you have to have it. So don't think all cholesterol is evil. What about your proteins? Your proteins are going to be can be both animal and plant-based. So animal-based would be like eggs and milk, fish, meats, and then you've got soybeans. Okay, and not an animal, obviously, but these all contain what we call complete proteins, and that means they have all the amino acids that we need. So what are proteins made out of? Chains of amino acids, and so we want to make sure we have a source of all the amino acids so that we can then make all the proteins that we need to make. Some protein sources like legumes, beans, nuts, cereals, they have incomplete proteins. They actually lack some of the amino acids. And so if you're a vegetarian, it's actually you can actually be missing some of your essential amino acids that you need to make protein. So vegetarians have to be very careful when they plan their diet and make sure they're getting both proteins that are complete and incomplete, because they've got to make sure they get all those amino acids. So if you're a vegetarian, make sure you're paying attention to which legumes and cereals that you're eating. And you may need to throw some soybeans in there to make sure that you're getting all your amino acids. One thing that you can do maybe is be a lacto-ovo, which maybe you just eat milk and eggs, but you don't eat meat. Or maybe you're a pescatarian, you only eat fish, but you need to find a way to make sure you're getting all your amino acids to make your proteins, because we have to have them. We've talked about proteins all the time through 201 and 202. They're structural. Things are made of protein, like the keratin in your skin, your collagen and elastin, enzymes, hormones, antibodies. So we can also burn them for energy. So you've got to have a source of protein that your body can use. So some other nutrients are your vitamins, and vitamins are organic compounds, and they're crucial in helping our body use our nutrients. We use them as coenzymes a lot of times, so they're very important in allowing us to process other nutrients. Some examples of vitamins will be vitamin D, which we actually can use our skin and kidney to make. Vitamin B and K actually are synthesized inside our intestine by some bacteria. And we actually have the beta-carotene that comes from carrots in our body will be converted to vitamin A. So some vitamins we can make ourselves, or we can convert them from one thing to the other into the usable form that we need. The other things we have to ingest, okay? So there's no way to get these vitamins unless you get them in your diet. Vitamin C is one of those things. You have to have a daily supply of vitamin D. Vitamin C. We don't store vitamin C. We don't make vitamin C. So you have to have a source of that every day. And so if you're a picky eater, it can be really hard to get everything that you need, because there's not one single food group out there that contains all your vitamins. So if you're a picky eater and all you eat is chicken fingers, you're probably not going to get enough vitamin C. So you've got to make sure you have a well-balanced and varied diet so that you get all of your vitamins. Now, you don't necessarily have to take vitamins in a pill. Okay, if you do that plate and you get a balanced diet of fruits, vegetables, grains, and meat, you should get all you need without having to take a supplement. But if you find that you're a picky eater and you never eat citrus fruit, or you cannot stand a green vegetable, you may need to take a supplement to get the essential vitamins that you need. Most vitamins our body doesn't really store, so if you're eating a healthy diet anyway, a varied diet, and you take a supplement, all you're really doing is making expensive pee. You're just going to get rid of it. So if you have a healthy diet, there's no need to take a vitamin. Vitamins come in two sources. You have water-soluble and fat-soluble. And some examples of the water-soluble are your B and C's, and also B12. And these are not stored in the body. If you don't use them, then they're just excreted. So again, if you're taking mega doses of vitamin C and vitamin B, and you're not using them, then you just made really expensive pee. So again, make sure that you eat the proper amount of nutrition containing the vitamins that you need, and don't waste your money on expensive vitamins if you're eating healthily. Some other vitamins are your fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. We actually do store these except for vitamin K, but you have to be careful. This is where people get in trouble too with vitamin supplements. If they're fat-soluble and you have a healthy diet and you're getting plenty of these vitamins in your diet and you go and take a supplement, we actually can have too much with excess vitamins in our diet, and that can actually lead to problems, some pathologies. So again, be real careful. Just because it's you go to the health food store and they sell you a vitamin doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for you. A varied, balanced diet is always the best way to go. All right, what about your minerals, vitamins and minerals? So your minerals, these are your good old elements like calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, magnesium. And most of these come in our food. So again, a lot of your vitamins are vitamins and minerals. It's a multivitamin. It'll have minerals in there. And if you're a female and you're approaching menopause and maybe you don't need a lot of dairy, you may need a calcium supplement. I mean, I'm not saying supplements are bad. It's just depending on your own physiology and your own diet. But if you're eating a balanced diet, then you typically don't need these as well. The only time I will absolutely positively say you must absolutely take a multivitamin is when you're pregnant. Because when you're pregnant, multivitamins will contain folic acid and iron, and these are going to be critical in the development of the baby, and we just simply don't have enough of those stored up to help the development of the fetus. Folic acid is crucial for nervous system development. It can help prevent birth defects like spina bifida, and obviously the baby needs blood, and so they've got to have iron. So that's about the only time I'll tell you to take a vitamin is when you're pregnant. Some other things you'll make sure when you're thinking about minerals, think about things that grow in the ground, because the ground's full of minerals, and so a lot of vegetables and nuts and peanuts, things like that, will have are high in minerals. Milk, because cows eat grass that has grown in the ground, has a lot of minerals. And of course meat, because again, most of the meat we eat comes from vegetarians that eat plant-based diets, and so they get the minerals that way. Iron would be a great source that you would get from meat. So what do we do with those minerals? Again, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium. We need all of those for bone health. So your bone, that rock hard mineral substance that you use to make bone, is made up of calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium. You need iron because that is how oxygen binds to hemoglobin. Iodine, what's that for? Thyroid hormone. Sodium chloride. We've talked about sodium chloride, good old sodium chloride. We've talked about that with action potentials. We've talked about that with water balance, membrane potentials. I mean, all kind of stuff. So sodium chloride is one of your major electrolytes. You want to make sure you have plenty of that. Usually not an issue. Most people get plenty of sodium in their diets, so that's not something you usually have to try to go out and work for. Most of us get plenty of sodium chloride just through our normal everyday meals. So why do we eat? Because we're hungry? No. We eat because we have to have metabolism. We've got to have biochemical processes that are going on in our body. And those processes are either making things or breaking things. So anabolism is where you make large molecules from small ones. So you take your amino acids and you make proteins. Catabolism is breaking things down, usually hydrolysis, which means cut with water. So you're taking your proteins and breaking them down into amino acids. So when you eat a steak, you take that protein, you break it down into amino acids through catabolism, then your body will internalize, take those amino acids, and build them right back up into proteins. So these two reactions are going on all the time. And then always the answer, ATP. We eat because we have to make ATP through the process of cellular respiration. All right, so I mentioned calories a few minutes ago. And so most of our food is going to be converted to heat in some form, okay? So remember, we talked way back in 201 about different types of energy. You have mechanical energy and kinetic energy and potential energy. And a byproduct of energy is always going to be heat. And so we need that heat because that's what makes us warm-blooded. It helps warm our tissues and warm our blood. Most of our chemical reactions, nervous system conduction, that needs to occur at a particular temperature range so that we can maintain homeostasis. And again, these metabolic reactions, metabolism, anabolism and catabolism in our bodies, humans work at a certain temperature. So we have to have enough heat to generate 98.6 so that all of these things can occur. And in order for this to happen and to maintain a stable weight, the energy in has to equal the energy out. All right, so the calories in have to equal the calories out. All right, so if you have 1,000 calories going in, 1,000 calories going out, your weight's going to remain stable. If you have 1,000 calories coming in and you burn 1,200 calories, you'll lose weight. If you have 1,000 calories coming in and you sit around all day watching TV and you only burn 800, couch potato, you're going to gain weight. So again, if this is not equal weight gain or weight loss, it's just that simple. Calories in have got to equal calories out. If you want to maintain your weight, to lose weight, calories in have to be less than calories out. Okay? And so obviously obesity is a problem in our country, and one of the ways that you can look at obesity is using a BMI, and there's plenty of calculators out there, and I'm not going to make you memorize a formula for that. Between 18 and 25 is considered normal BMI. Anything below 18 is underweight. 25 to 30 is considered overweight. All right, and so increased health risks with a BMI between 25 and 30. Now, over 30 is considered obese, and really, really high incidence of atherosclerosis, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart attack, stroke, you name it. A BMI over 30 is going to lead to those kind of problems. We have more people that have a BMI over 30 than we've ever had, so obesity is rampant in our society right now. I will say though, you have to be a little careful with BMI. If you're a bodybuilder and you're in really, really good shape and you have a lot of mass but not a lot of fat, sometimes you'll have an overinflated BMI. So sometimes you'll go on the scale and you'll take your height, you'll take your weight, and it tells you have a BMI of 27, 28, but you realize you're a big bodybuilder. That's a different story. Okay, so BMI generally is a good indicator of health, but if you are really, really fit with a lot of muscle mass, it may actually be a little bit off for you. So but you would know that if you're in shape, then you know that you don't have a high BMI that's going to cause you problems with heart attack, stroke, and things like that. I did want to say something about the calories in, calories out. A lot of people say, well, how many calories should I have? And a good rule of thumb, just to kind of think about, is to take your weight. And so let's say you weigh 120 pounds. Sure. And let's say you multiply that by 10. 1,200. So if you weigh 100, basically you can take your weight, multiply that by 10, and that's going to give you the amount of calories that you need just to maintain. That's kind of your basal metabolic rate, okay? So if you didn't do anything else but wake up and you pretty much laid in the bed all day and didn't do a whole lot, you would need pretty much 1,200 calories just to keep your body alive. Because remember, your heart's beating, it's been working the whole time. You're pumping blood, your neurons are working, your body's working, you're breathing, your respiratory muscles are burning calories. So just to stay alive, this is going to be kind of your basal metabolic rate, how many calories you need. So if you're trying to lose weight, you have to say, okay, if I just lay around all day, then I can't have too much more than 1,200 calories. If I walk a mile takes about 100 calories. So if I want to maintain my weight, I can say, okay, I can add 100 calories. All right, if I walk a mile, and I still won't gain weight. If I want to lose weight, I've got to eat less than my calorie intake. Now, people don't recommend eating much less than 1,200 calories because that is what your body needs just to stay alive. So what a lot of people, where they mess up, is they just starve themselves and they'll say, oh, if my basal rate's 1,200, I'll just eat 1,000 calories and I'll lose weight. Well, that's harmful for your body because your body needs fuel. So the better thing is to limit your calories, but make sure you're eating at least 1,200 calories, but increase your exercise. Okay, so make sure you're exercising. So again, take your weight, multiply by 10, and that kind of gives you a baseline of where you need to start when you think about calorie count. Then add your activity levels to it. The more active you are, the more you get to eat. Okay. Lots of calculators out there. If you've got an iPhone, there's MyFitnessPal. There's plenty of calculators out there to help you figure out how many calories you need to maintain your weight, lose your weight, or gain weight. Some people want to gain weight. Not many. All right. So we always want to talk about what goes wrong. Something called metabolic syndrome. I just want to mention it briefly. And metabolic syndrome is when you have a cluster of 5 risk factors. And if you have these 5 risk factors, it increases your risk of diabetes 5-fold. It doubles your chance of heart disease. So you're like, ooh, I don't want these 5 things. What are these 5 things that can increase my chance of diabetes and heart attack? Increased waist circumference, so big belly. Increased blood pressure. Increased sugar levels in your blood glucose. Increased blood triglycerides. And decreased blood HDL. When you think of cholesterol, there's kind of 2 flavors, LDL and HDL. And they call them the good and the bad. HDLs are your goods and your LDLs are your bads. So you want to have low LDLs and high HDLs. So if you have low HDLs, that can be a risk factor for heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. So look at all these. Increased waist circumference. Based on what we've talked about in blood pressure, we've talked about obesity and blood pressure causes high blood pressure. We've talked about diabetes. We've talked about glucose levels. Anytime you've got basically obesity, it's going to cause all 5 of these potentially to occur. That's metabolic syndrome. And so when you look at someone with metabolic syndrome, it's that classic apple shape, kind of a large waist circumference. That's it's actually better to have kind of that pear shape than the waist circumference. Higher than normal blood pressure, high glucose levels, high triglycerides, and low HDL. And so when you walk into the physician's office and they see these 5 things, and red flag going off that you're at a high risk of dropping dead from a heart attack or having diabetes type 2. All right, so what should you do? Lose weight and exercise. So a lot of times people say, oh, how do I regulate? How do I eat? I'm always hungry. So what are the signals that make us want to eat? We have signals from the GI tract, all right? One of the things you can do to kind of trick your body is high protein meals actually will decrease hunger. So when they say grab a handful of almonds, almonds are high in protein. Sometimes increasing your protein load over your carbohydrate and fat load can actually help you lose weight because it'll Snickers really satisfies. You ever heard of that because of peanuts? It's true. So you want to try to maybe eat some higher protein snacks throughout the day. Drink a lot of water. When you distend the stomach, that distension actually can send signals to the vagus nerve, cranial nerve 10, and suppress hunger. So sometimes if you're really hungry and you're trying to lose weight, go grab a bottle of water and and a handful of almonds and stretch your stomach out a little bit, and that may give you a little while before you're just hungry again. Some other things that can depress how you make you less hungry is the better the nutrition. The better if you're getting all the nutrients that you need. I kind of like to think of it this way. I think your body craves things. I really do. I think so. You think, oh man, I feel like I need to eat this or I need to eat that. Sometimes it's like your body wants that. It needs it. It's missing those amino acids. It's missing that key part of your nutrition. So listen to your body. If you're just craving an apple, maybe there's a reason. If you're craving that banana, maybe you're low in potassium. So I think sometimes our bodies can be signals to what we actually need to do. And of course, hormones. Hormones are always going to play a role in everything. We have some gut hormones, insulin and cholecystokinin, that can depress hunger. Glucagon and epinephrine, they stimulate hunger. There's something called ghrelin. It's kind of hard to say. It's from the stomach, and it tends to stimulate your appetite. And so when your stomach starts growling and you're getting hungry, you may release this hormone, and you'll get a peak of it. If you were to measure blood levels, you'll see it kind of peak throughout the day around the time of mealtime. So it's kind of hard to beat your hormones. If your hormones tell you that you're hungry, then you're probably hungry. And then there's leptin. Leptin is a hormone that's made by fat cells, and we see more leptin is going to be released when you have a higher body mass index. So the higher your BMI, the more leptin you have. And it's actually there to kind of protect you against weight loss during famine. And so it acts as an appetite stimulant, actually. And so sometimes it's really hard to lose weight. It seems like the less you eat, the harder you try to lose weight, the hungrier you are. And I think sometimes that may be because of that leptin. It feels like you're in a famine mode, and it's being secreted to make you hungry. And so you just have to kind of, walk away from the refrigerator, put a chain link around the door and walk away and try to override your hormones. But it can be tough. So losing weight can be tough when your hormones are working against you. What else can regulate food intake? Cold. If you're cold, that can activate hunger because you're shivering and you're generating a lot more heat. You're burning a lot more calories. Stress. This can work either way. For some people, they're stressed out and they won't eat, and for some people, they're stress eaters. So that's an individual thing. Depression, same thing. It can go either way. Some people, when they get depressed, they go get a big gallon of ice cream and sit on the couch and eat the whole thing. And some people just push food away. They can't even eat. So you never know how it will affect you personally until you've been through these situations. A lot of times infection will make you hungry. A lot of feet are cold. If you're sick, you may be cold. If you're sleep deprived, definitely will increase your hunger. A lot of times you're sleepy and you need energy, so that makes you feel like if you eat a quick sugar load, it'll make you feel awake. So sleep deprivation can make you eat more. And also the composition of your gut bacteria. If you're having different problems with your gut, maybe it may be affecting how you digest food, bloating, gas, things like that. And so it may not be pleasant to eat sometimes. But the overall message I really want you to take away is what you need to eat, which is a mixture of carbohydrates, lipids, and fats that are high in vitamins and minerals. That's the key. And you want to maintain a healthy weight by eating plenty of fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Avoid junk food. Exercise. And it doesn't have to be, going to the gym for 2 hours a day. Walking 30 minutes a day, twice a day. Just make sure you're eating a healthy diet with lots of good, healthy vitamins, minerals, and getting some exercise. And obviously, you want to make sure you're getting plenty of water. All right, that's all I've got, and that's your nutrition talk, and that's about it. We're almost done with 202. Thank you.